First entry. Between the years 7989 and 8061 marks the colonization of New Eden. Mass colonization begins, and a network of gates are constructed across the star cluster in the next few decades. The cluster as a whole soon takes on the name New Eden. Numerous ethnic, political and religious groups travel to New Eden to establish colonies. Powerful megacorporations also join the drive to explore and exploit the worlds found beyond the Eve Gate. Next entry. 8061. The Eve Gate closes. A cataclysmic event results in the collapse of the New Eden wormhole and the sudden closure of the Eve Gate. As a result of the catastrophe, the New Eden Stargate network experiences a cascading failure and the human colonies are cut off, not only from the home galaxy but also from one another. By 8100 AD, the smaller colonies and settlements have perished, with only larger settlements on relatively hospitable planets surviving. Next entry. Spanning the time 8100 to 16262, marks an era in New Eden history as the Dark Ages. Due to the collapse of the New Eden Stargate network, most colonies are cut off from all other settlements in the cluster. Many perish, while others, lacking the ability to maintain their technology, slowly decay and devolve into less advanced societies. There is very little to hint at what took place during this dark time beyond the fragmentary remnants of lost civilizations and myths handed down through the ages. Following entry in database. From 16,470 to 21,950, the Amar Empire rises. Originating as a society of religious colonists, the Amar truly began their path to mastery of the greatest star empire in New Eden with the coronation of the first Amar Emperor. As the early Amar society began to be transformed into a theocratic empire, they became aware of other peoples on their home planet of Athra, later renamed Amar Prime. Determined to spread the word of their religion, the Amar launched the Reclaiming, a campaign to conquer the entire planet. The Amar completed their conquest of Amar Prime Indiana 20544 AD, and soon began to look to the heavens. Able to reverse engineer faster than light technology from an ancient stargate in the Amar system, the empire soon spread far across the stars. Any race the Amar encountered were absorbed into the empire by force of arms, and none were able to withstand them until the fateful encounters with the Gallente and Jove. By 21,950 AD, the Amar Empire controlled vast swathes of space and had established the system of royal houses, with the emperor unquestioned as both religious leader and supreme ruler of the empire. Next database entry. 17,453 to 20,998. A legacy of Caldari unity. The planet of Caldari Prime was fortunate to have been colonized by a megacorporation that set in motion the process of terraforming before the catastrophe that closed the Eve Gate. While life was hard, a handful of outposts survived until the air of Caldari Prime became breathable. In time, civilization spread across the planet, but inevitably it had devolved to a feudal mode of living. Eventually the two great empires of Rauta or Ioni and Fukui joined under one rule, the Rautu Empire. The Rautu Empire unified the vast majority of the people of Caldari Prime and endured until its fall Indiana 20998 AD, whereupon it was divided into many states. Yet the Rauta period left a great legacy among the Caldari, one of kinship, the importance of family and a sense of collective unity despite a tendency towards independence and internal disputes. The Rautu Empire laid the foundations of the unique Caldari sensibility that would lead to the establishment of the Caldari state many centuries later. Next entry. 18,622 to 22,355. Minmatar Civilization emerges. The planet Matar was quickly colonized by numerous expeditions due to its very hospitable conditions. When the Eve Gate closed, most of the Matari settlements survived, although they soon lost their technology as lack of supplies led to an inevitable breakdown. Several distinct civilizations developed on Matar and gradually became aware of one another. Eventually, technological advances allowed for regular trade between the different societies, and a global culture developed, albeit one steeped in tribal traditions. Over time, the Minmatar unified in a loose empire and made their way into space. The Minmatar Empire was able to settle colonies on a number of planets and moons in several local systems, usually depending on ancient stargates. The later Amar invasion shattered the Minmatar Empire, but memories of tribal unity persisted until the later Minmatar Republic could be founded amidst the flames of rebellion. Next entry. 21,656 to 23,121, a period where Gallente culture blossoms. Although Gallente Prime was a fairly hospitable planet and colonized by people of common cultural heritage, there was an inevitable descent into a medieval society during the Dark Ages of New Eden. In time, the great Ruvena family came to power on the Garoun continent and quickly built the greatest empire that world had ever seen. Under the great Dildos Ruvena III, the Garoun Empire's extent encompassed much of the planet, though it was not without powerful rivals. The Age of Ruvena, as it has come to be known, heralded enormous strides in cultural and technological development. While the Garoun Empire collapsed in Diana 21834 AD, it left an indelible imprint on Gallente culture. In particular, the Garoun Empire's remarkable emphasis on personal liberty echoed down the ages. Indeed, democracy and freedom came to define the global civilization that eventually reached out to the stars and established the Gallente Federation. Following entry. 22,355 to 22,480. The Amar-Minmatar Conflict. The Amar Empire, driven by its religion to reclaim the stars and all living around them, expands rapidly and eventually comes into contact with the much smaller Minmatar Empire. The Amar easily subdue the Minmatar in an attack known as the Day of Darkness and take many thousands of slaves. The Amar continue their slave raids for many decades until finally escalating their attacks into an all-out war of conquest. In the end, the Minmatar Empire is no more, and the entire Minmatar race enters a period of subjugation and slavery under the rule of the Amar Empire. Next entry. 23,155 to 23,248. The Caldari-Gallente War. Inhabiting two planets in the same solar system, the Caldari and Gallente peoples established contact with one another as soon as space technology was developed by the more advanced Gallente. When the Gallente formed their federation with other races they had encountered, such as the Intaki and Manar, it seemed natural to them that the Caldari should join also. While the Caldari acquiesced in this, the fiercely independent nature of their corporations led them to establish secret bases and colonies in several star systems. The discovery of these bases was the spark that eventually led to the Caldari-Gallente War. A bitter conflict, the war leads to the expulsion of the Caldari from their home planet and the formation of the Caldari state as a fully independent corporate empire. Next entry in database. 23,191. Empires in contact. After much expansion and conflict, the four major nations of New Eden's core have established contact with one another. The first contact between the Amar Empire and the Gallente Federation in Diana 23180 AD had been handled with caution on both sides. It soon became clear to both empires that, given their comparable military power, conflict between the two would be devastating to all. After cautious probing, the Caldari also encounter the Amar and establish relations. In the course of events, both the Caldari state and Gallente Federation become aware of the subjugated Minmatar people. Shortly after this, the mysterious Jove make themselves known to the empires. Next entry. 23,216. The Great Rebellion. The Amar Empire, perceiving the Jove as an insidious threat but apparently militarily weak, launch an attempted invasion of the Jove Empire. This attack is swiftly halted in its tracks by the total defeat of the Amar invasion force by a Jovian mothership at the Battle of Vacaciath. The unprecedented and devastating defeat of their fleet throws the Amar Empire into turmoil, and the Minmatar rebel movement seize the moment to strike. The Great Great Rebellion results in the expulsion of the Amar from the Minmatar homeworld and surrounding regions. It is the single greatest loss of territory in the history of the Amar Empire. The Minmatar Republic is formed and swiftly recognized by the Gallente Federation. The Amar, in no state to fight a war on multiple fronts, accept reality and concentrate on defending their borders and establishing the Amar Mandate, a client state of Minmatar subjects that remain loyal to the Empire. Continuing to next entry. 23,224. The gift of the Capsule. For reasons known only to themselves, the Jove establish contact with the Ishikone Corporation, a Caldari mega corporation, and give it the technology of the hydrostatic capsule, a means of integrating a pilot so closely with his ship that they are able to operate its systems as an extension of their own body. The swift reaction time and reduction in crew this technology enables leads to its rapid adoption by the Caldari. The technology is soon acquired by the other empires and many ship designs were adapted for use by capsule pilots. Next entry. 23,233. Concord Established. Despite ongoing conflicts and disputes, the five empires come together to form the Consolidated Cooperation and Relations Command, Concord. The organization soon becomes more than just a forum for diplomacy between the empires and rapidly grows into a powerful entity in its own right. Subsequently, the Uli Convention, named after Concord's headquarters in the Uli system, develops into a comprehensive body of interstellar law regulating activities in space controlled by the empires. Next entry. 23,236. New Eden Standard Time, YC0. A major interstellar conference is held aboard the Jovian cruiser Jamyl, and attended by representatives of all the empires. The Jamyl conference establishes a universal date and time format that becomes known as New Eden Standard Time or EST. The universal dating from this time follows the Jamyl conference format, and 23,236 AD is equivalent to YC0 in the new system. Following entry. 23,248. Caldari-Gallente War Ends, YC12. Reduced to sporadic border skirmishes, and with peace talks underway for some years, the long war between the Caldari state and the Gallente Federation finally ends. The Federation fully recognizes the state as a sovereign entity, but Caldari Prime remains under Gallente control. For their part, the Caldari state corporations retain control over all their original colonies and bases. As a peace settlement, the agreement was not fully satisfactory to either party, and relations between the Federation and state were to remain frosty at best. The status of Caldari Prime, in particular, remained controversial for many Caldari nationalists. Next entry. 23,340. The Capsule and the Clone, YC 104. While the empires had used the Capsule for some time, its fullest maturity as a technology was reached when advanced cloning technology was married to the original hydrostatic capsule design. The result of this fusion of technologies was a new class of human beings, the Capsuleers. Next entry. 23,341. The Empyrean Age begins, YC 105. After the fusion of the Capsule and the Clone, the new Capsuleer class began to make their presence felt more and more in New Eden. Concord's decision to license independent Capsuleers led to increasing numbers of the augmented pilots hurtling along the spaceways of the cluster. Inevitably, some of the most independent-minded Capsuleers became mercenaries, pirates and worse. Others remained loyal to the empires or were happy enough to pursue peaceful lives of exploration and trade. Whether reviled or hailed, the rise of the Capsuleers, called by some Empyreans, signaled the dawn of a new age for New Eden. Next entry loading. Please wait one moment. 23,342. Capsuleer Alliances. Recognized, YC 106. In their zero-security outer regions, the Capsuleers rapidly set about establishing control over large swathes of territory. The discovery of a network of smuggler gates considerably assisted the Capsuleer colonization of these regions, as did the presence of long-abandoned stations that they promptly appropriated for themselves. By the end of the year, the Outer Ring Excavations Corporation had started selling starbase components and moon mining equipment to independent Capsuleers. The formal recognition by Concord of Capsuleer Alliances and the control they exerted over the outer regions followed swiftly. Next entry. 23,344. Drone Regions Open, YC 108. Empires and Capsuleers alike were startled when a number of offline stargates in northeastern New Eden spontaneously reactivated. Tentative explorations indicated that as many as 8 previously closed-off regions could now be accessed. Concord warned that the new regions should not be entered due to unspecified dangers, but were largely ignored by the Capsuleer population. It was soon discovered that the regions were heavily populated by rogue drones, leading many to call them the drone regions. Next entry. June 23,346. Tibus Heth rises to power and Jamyl Sarum returns, YC 110. The Caldari state was shaken by revolution as Tibus Heth, a man of the people figure, rose to power on a wave of popular sentiment, backed by considerable and mysterious funding. Heth's control over the Caldari state was cemented in the wake of the Malcolm incident. A radical nationalist, Heth's moment to strike against the Gallente Federation was supplied inadvertently by the neutralization of Concord command and control by a Minmatar elder fleet. In the absence of any check on his actions, Heth launched an invasion of the Luminaire system and seized Caldari Prime. The Minmatar elders launched their own invasion of the Amar Empire, conducting landings on numerous planets in an effort to free the remaining Minmatar held as slaves by the Amar. This action prompted the return of Jamyl Sarum at the head of an Amar fleet, and wielding a super weapon that was able to turn back the Minmatar assault. As Concord finally regained control of its systems, a state of war existed between the empires of New Eden. The Empyrean War had begun. Next database entry. October 23,346. Jamyl Sarum crowned, YC 110. Following her victorious return in battle against the Minmatar invaders, Jamyl Sarum's triumph was completed when she was crowned Empress of Amar with all the pomp and circumstance that the Empire could muster. Next entry. March 23,347. Saline disaster as wormholes emerge, YC 111. One event and its aftermath dominated YC 111 above all others, the Saline disaster. The destruction of the inhabited Gallente world of Saline I was one catastrophic effect of a more profound and widespread phenomenon, the emergence of unstable wormholes across the New Eden cluster. The long-term effects of the wormholes can only be guessed at, but it was Saline, with its almost inconceivable human tragedy, that gripped New Eden before the wider impact of events began to be comprehended. Next entry. 23,348. Sansha's nation strikes at the empires, YC 112. Taking advantage of wormhole manipulation technology unknown to the core empires, their old foe Sansha returned to plague them with a series of incursions into their space. The focus of the Sansha's nation raids appeared to be on two things: harvesting people to be converted into true slaves and pursuit of some mysterious goal involving ancient technologies. Capsuleers of all loyalties were soon involved in the fight against the Sansha incursions, although some chose to fight on the side of Sansha and his cybernetic legions. Following large-scale incursions and harvesting operations throughout the year, Sansha incursions began to be effectively combated in most instances but continued to be an existential threat. Next entry. Year 23,350. Sleeper technology exploited, YC 114. As the systems accessible through unstable wormholes, known collectively as W-space, were explored. The ruins of an ancient civilization had been discovered. While the sleeper civilization appeared long dead, their technology remained and in many cases was in a functioning state. Not least were the security drones that the sleepers had left behind, some with all the power and capability of battleships. Many explorers fell victim to these implacable and silent guardians of the sleeper civilization's tombs. Despite the dangers, the remnants of sleeper technology were eagerly recovered by Capsuleers and the empires alike. It was not long before scientific and technological advances of all kinds began to be made using the insights provided by sleeper artifacts. Rumors of great strides in post-human technology began to filter out by the end of YC 114, although the empires maintained a stony silence on the subject. Next entry. January 23,351. Clone troopers revealed, YC 115. Large-scale and unusually widespread ground fighting erupted across New Eden during the first month of YC 115. It soon became clear that the nature of the combat was unusually brutal, with the participating troops taking unusually high casualties on all sides. Reports indicated that these soldiers were very well equipped, heavily armed, and able to strike at will, using dropships and specialized personal drop suits. The sudden emergence of an apparent escalation in military technology on all sides caused considerable fear and suspicion across New Eden. Even though the governments and militaries of the four core empires refused to comment on these events, rumors swiftly began circulating that these soldiers were cloned troopers willing to take suicidal risks in battle. The rumors were soon confirmed, despite continuing silence from the empires, when the Capsuleers began to use the services of these new mercenaries and openly discuss them. The clone pilots had been joined by clone troopers, and it was clear the battlefields of New Eden would never be the same again. Next entry in database. March 22nd, 23,351. The Battle of Caldari Prime. YC 115. At the end of March YC 115, the Federation Navy launched a major assault against the Caldari Navy's Leviathan-class Titan Jamyl, in orbit around Caldari Prime since its reconquest as a guarantee of orbital space superiority and a standing threat of mass destruction. Deploying a capital assault force of Nix-class supercarriers and Mirrors-class dreadnoughts, the Federation forces were considerably aided by Capsuleer supporters, while the Jamyl and its escorts were supported by Caldari loyalist Capsuleers. The attacking forces proved too strong and the Titan was destroyed. Large sections of the Titan's superstructure impacted on the surface of Caldari Prime, causing widespread destruction. On Caldari Prime itself, clone mercenaries fought fiercely for both the Caldari and Gallente ground forces. Caldari forces were able to hold a slight majority of the planetary surface, a major factor in the subsequent demilitarization and division of the planet between Caldari and Gallente administrations. Next entry. May 14th, 23,351. Mercenary Colonies in Molden Heath, YC 115. Seeing an opportunity to solve a long-standing security problem in Molden Heath, the Thucker tribe took the extraordinary step of inviting the recently emerged clone mercenaries of New Eden to settle in the unstable Minmatar region. From mid-May YC 115, clone soldiers began to arrive in force and colonize designated districts on the temperate planets of Molden Heath. In extending this invitation to the heavily armed mortals, the main purpose of the Thucker was to establish forces powerful enough to discourage the Angel Cartel from any repetition of their previous planetary invasions in the region. The move proved controversial in the Minmatar Republic, but the Thucker tribe firmly argued the merits of encouraging a strong mercenary presence as a means to deter further cartel aggression. End of current database log. Message from System Admin. Will your story be the next entry? Thank you for listening. Logging you out of audio.